Hey, Ryan Manfredi with Metro Fire's Peer Support Team. Another video we're bringing to you. This is Captain Ryan Pulis. He discusses his journey from probation all through promoting to captain and to this point now where he is also the A shift coordinator for peer support. He's been an integral part of the peer support team, also building the K9 program here at Metro Fire. I want to thank Ryan for again having the courage to have this conversation on camera. Many times individuals don't have a problem talking to others privately, but it is a much different thing to put yourself out there on video. I think this video, along with the last one we did, is a good example of how the cumulative effects of this job can impact us over time. Again, this is a mostly unedited video, and I appreciate Ryan having this conversation. Please listen to what he has to say. He's got a lot of advice and a lot of life experience in this realm. And with that, Captain Ryan Pulis.
Okay.
Either way.
Well, I'm Ryan Pulis, captain at Engine 65A. Been with the department almost 18 years.
Okay. Where are you at these days?
Here at 65, yeah.
Okay.
On the engine. I'm also the A shift coordinator or a liaison for peer support.
Okay. And where did you do probation? Where were kind of your early years?
So my early years, I started in 2006. I was in 6-2. Spent my probation at Station 110 when it was brand new.
Not a bad spot.
I had Ryan Watley and then Mike Wigington as captains back then. And got to work with Terry Melhoff, some good people. So yeah, probation was in B7, and most of my career, almost all my career until last year was in B7. That's when I came down here. Finally got out of 109 after 13 years in there.
Okay.
Some years in the pool prior to that.
Okay. And then when did you promote to captain?
Captain was in 2019.
Yeah, okay, so you spent quite a bit
coming
of time.
Up right next month. Next month will be 5 years as captain.
Okay, cool. And then how was 109 for you?
109? 109 is a brutal house. It was great. I had a really great crew. For a long time, that was why I stayed there for so long. Later on, when I got back on the team as a captain, I couldn't get out. So I was, whether I wanted to or not, was there. So I spent a total of just shy of 13 years at that house. Okay. Medic, engine, truck, and then back on the engine as a captain.
Okay. Okay. And what got you to bid out finally?
Finally, we expanded the size of the hazmat team. I had a lot of team seniority, but I was still the junior hazmat captain. And so when the team expanded, it was my time to get out. So
okay.
It's been a good change for me.
Okay, good. And then when did you join the peer support?
I started peer support in September of 2016 was when I went to the training.
Okay.
And that was after Jeff Wells called me and asked me if I wanted to be involved.
Oh. Yeah. What prompted that?
Oh, well, I think we'll take the story from the beginning.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that. I had all these thoughts last night knowing we were going to do this today and trying to figure out how I wanted to organize this today. And there's a lot of important points that I wanted to hit. Well, to start, I started here in 2006. December is when I came to the line as a probie. I had some rough experience early in my career that kind of really paved the road that I am now. So I'll start from the beginning. I'll say a couple things up front too. I haven't seen anything worse in my career than anyone else has seen. Arguably, there's probably folks out there that have seen worse things than I have, but I saw some things early on that affected me. And the old culture and the old way, we didn't have a way of dealing with that. We didn't even have an awareness of it. I think if anything I want to get across today, it's just the importance of awareness, something simple. And the other thing is that trauma is very, very individual, just like this job is. You know, when we go on calls, it's individual. We could be here at 65 running something, 61's down the street running something else. And we never know, as anyone knows, what the tones are going to bring. So the calls are individual to the crews, and then each person has their individual experience there. And we've said it many times when we're doing our diffusions or CISDs with peer support that some folks might not be affected by things at all. And that's perfectly okay. That's awesome when it is. And there's other times somebody is, you know, and it's not a right or wrong to it. The reasons, spent the last 8 years trying to sort out reasons. I don't know what all the reasons are, but there's a number of factors that affect the way that a person just deals with certain things they're exposed to. So I'll go from the beginning. For me, the call for me that started everything was my 4th week on the job. And I was doing my 10 shift still on Medic 110. And we had an apartment fire over at Bentley Place Apartments on Morse Avenue. Still riding along and back. I was, riding third with 2 other firefighters up front. Didn't really know what was going on. I knew we were going to a fire. You're brand new, It's like, what do I know? We showed up, and somewhere in there was a report of victims trapped. And when we first got there, I followed the senior firefighter that was on the medic with me, and we went door to door on some adjacent apartments. Fire department coming and seeing people were in there. And somewhere in there, someone told me, we need to get back to the medic. They're coming out with a victim. So ran back to the medic with one of my other partners on there. And I think at the time, just kind of waiting back with the doors open out in the street there on Morse Avenue. I think it was Terry Melhoff that came running out with a 7-month-old infant, and sat him down on my gurney. And I'd always said through paramedic school and for the little bit of time that I worked down at Braemar and Stockton, that I've always done anything I could for pediatric patients. And I looked, in my mind, I was just kind of shocked. He'd burned to death, but I thought airway. I turned around and I go to the wall, not even where the airway stuff was, and I kind of stopped and looked and turned back around and just kind of realized where I was at. He's dead. It was only another moment. I remember the partner that was in there with me, his reaction was something along the lines like, oh no, when he saw it. And then he left the medic after that. And then it was another minute or two. They said, there's another one coming out. I got his 18-month-old sister on my gurney too. I had 7-month-old and 18-month-old that together didn't make up the length of a gurney. Both burned to death. There was a lot of emotion inside me at the time, but at the same time, I had a job to do, and I'm like, okay, just more shock. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And I remember at some point there looking up, and there was a civilian lady, doors of medical. She was standing in the back. She had her hands over her face. And I remember just looking at her, making eye contact, and just nodding like there's nothing I can do. Next thing I hear, they're dragging Dad out. They took him and put him in AMR 105. It was at the time, right next to our medic. He was dead too. He'd gone in and tried to get the kids and couldn't. And all you heard was Mom screaming throughout that apartment complex. So we kind of used the medics as a morgue. Took around the corner to Bevmo parking lot, waited for the coroner. I'm brand new. I don't even know any of this process, Go back to 110. We were coming off shift, and I think it was a 4-day we were going on. So we were on the old Kelly schedule still. And I didn't know what to do. And I never seen anything like that in my life. So I went to church. I went by St. Mary's over in East Sac, and the only thing I needed to do was go light some candles and say some prayers for that family. I went to lunch that afternoon, and I ordered a hamburger, and I couldn't eat it because the taste of the char on the burger is identical to what those infants smelled like. So I didn't know how to process that. Didn't know how to talk about that. At the time, I thought, okay, that's just the job. That's how it goes. I think it was the next set we came in, and a well-intended battalion chief at the time had set up a CISD, a big debriefing for all the units involved. So we met upstairs at 106. I think it was most of the units that involved from our district. Sac City was there. Can't remember if AMR was there, if there was law enforcement. I was brand new, but as we went through that process and went out of room, everyone was, those that chose to speak were, like we normally do, were telling their story. And then when it got to me, I got skipped. And it moved to the guy next to me, and it went on. And I thought, in my mind, well, I guess, I don't know. In my mind, I was the only one that was in that ambulance with 2 dead infants. But I was a probie, so I thought, okay, suck it up, man. And yeah, I spent the next few weeks watching crew members that I'd worked with that were there, and just seeing if they were different, because I didn't know how to process this at the time. I couldn't tell, but I was thinking to myself, and after I finally got to a point, I said, okay, well, I guess you just learn to suck it up. This is the job, you know, and that's what I tried to do. In hindsight, following that call, man, every single sign of a PTSI was there. And I like to use the term PTSI. Post-traumatic stress disorder, to me, suggests that there's something that's just this disorder that can't be cured. And the simple fact is, most injuries involving post-traumatic stress are fixable with therapy. I'll find that out down the road. We'll get to that. So at the time, I didn't know what any of that meant, but there's so many things since then when I look back, conversations even with a week or two with being brand new with coworkers here were like, what happens if the bucket fills all the way up one day? You know, it's like, how do you deal with this? And the answers I got were pretty vague back then. And I remember like the following year going on a call. It's on Medic 32 with Brian Walsh, and we get sent for a unresponsive 4-month-old at Rocket Mobile Home Park in 63's first in. And it's back, we had BLS engines, and 63 was BLS, and it was my tech. And I'm like yelling at the medic on the way there, like, I don't need this right now, you know. And still, I knew that was an issue, but I didn't want to deal with that, you know. Time goes forward. That one was the SIDS death. I get there and I pronounce a 4-month-old dead, and then tell his 14-year-old mother and his grandfather that there's nothing we can do for him. You know, so just start heaping stuff on. That call, and as I find out later, I had as much issue with the way that CISD went when it came down to therapy. That was where I just slowly started to unravel over a number of years. Something I used to joke about all the time. People would ask outside of this job, like, how do you deal with the job? And I've always said, well, that's what whiskey's for. I tried that. I could tell you there's a time and a place where whiskey doesn't work anymore. And I eventually got there. But mine was almost 10 years later. Heap on all kinds of horrific things over the years. Again, never understanding what was going on at the time. Something some of the young guys and girls in the past have heard me say around here. I've told some folks that there are times in this career where you're going to feel like you need to cry, but you can't because you have a job to do. But if you don't find the time to do it soon afterward, and you wait too long, then you can't, and you keep it. And I said that for a long time, understanding that that was what I felt and experienced, but not knowing why. So again, fast forward 10 years, and I finally got to a point in my life. There's a lot of power in actually verbalizing things from the inside and telling someone else. I'd like to say it was a conversation, but it wasn't. It was an argument with my brother where I came out, I remember yelling at him, I'm not happy. And I don't know, it's like that brought it to the surface finally. And I thought, man. And over several weeks, really, man, so much came up with that. Thank God, it was just dumb timing, but it was the right timing for me. Jeff Wells had sent out a email about the new peer support stuff we were doing and the meeting at the 522 local hall. And I got a hold of him. I said, hey man, I think I might need to go. So I went to that meeting, and when I showed up, I completely broke down. I don't think there was more than 5 or 6 people in the meeting that day. But I can say, and it was the first thing I said when I sat down, is I'm really relieved to be here. Sorry, there's still emotion in this for me.
Take your time, man.
There's a lot of relief finally being able to tell somebody else that you need help.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And fortunately, Wellesley was already pretty well involved with what he does now. And I was introduced to Kay Williams, who I went to see as a clinician. And to say, well, the breakdown, first that you show up in a clinician's office, there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of unknowns. But you put your faith in the fact that this is what this person does. Mm-hmm. And this is a safe place to talk. And there was a ton of relief showing up in a clinician's office for the first time too. And then you open your bags.
Yeah.
And I opened my bags. So Kay spent, I went through the EAP at the time. So Kay spent multiple sessions going through a number of things with me. But came up with, no doubt, you're dealing with PTSI, among other issues in my life at the time. And she came with treatment for that. There's different modalities that clinicians are using out there for treatment. The one that's, I've done brain spotting and EMDR. The best results I've had personally have been from EMDR, and that's what I did with Kay. People ask me about it. I've referred a lot of folks since I've been involved with peer support for help, and they've asked me about EMDR, and I'll just kind of describe the process and what that was, because it's made a world of difference for me. It's a really passive process. She told me what it was going to be, and I thought, well, how's this going to work? In the case that I did with her, there's different methods of stimulation for it. Mine was auditory, where she put a headset on me, and there's just sounds that go from one side of the one ear to the other. I think it's left to right. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. But it was like ocean sounds and rain sounds, just like soothing sounds. Yeah. But then she explained to me, you're just going to start with an emotion that came up, and start with a thing that came from that incident, and you're going to think through the incident itself. And I thought to myself, well, this sounds pretty off the wall, but okay, I'll trust in it. Okay. So EMDR, there's different ways that it's done, like I said, but essentially what it does is it mimics what your brain does during REM sleep. And I'm a layperson, I'm not a clinician, but essentially when you go to bed at night, you go through cycles of REM sleep, that's where your day is processed, and that's where trauma is processed. So they found that this technique, using basically stimulation that mimics the brain during REM sleep, that they've been able to use to help people reprocess traumatic events. Mm-hmm. There's other ways. I've done the auditory with Kay. I've also, with another clinician, done one that uses pucks that have just like a vibrating type stimulation from one hand to the other, but the process is very similar. So you'll walk through in your mind, eyes closed, the call, and you start there, and periodically the clinician will stop and ask you a question about it. Okay, and then continue. And it's a very passive process. I can say that at times it can be as passive as it is, very intense process too, as your brain gets into it. I left that day from the office going, okay, like we'll just see, didn't feel too much different. Some things that I can say, we did treatment for the incident itself. And where there was this almost as much, if not more, injury was actually in that CISD. I had a whole set of treatment surrounding that. Just those, it created a lot of a negative feeling toward the district for me for a number of years, that affected my attitude, I'm sure, around here for a number of years.
Is that because you got skipped?
Or? Yeah, just that feeling that nobody cared. And it left a really negative mark. It sure did. So moving forward, we did several treatments for that. And what I can say about it is trauma is a lot of things, and a PTSI is a lot of things. And it's certainly the images of what you see. And I can say that because what I had was constant intrusive memory of that, where no matter where I was, I could be at Disneyland or fishing in Alaska, wherever I was, somewhere great,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd still see that picture. And I always say it was right up here because it felt like it was just above my field of vision.
Hmm.
That's where that picture always was of those two, an infant and that toddler, brother and sister on that gurney. Um, it's not just that though. It's the smells, it's the sounds, it's the screams, it's all the emotion that you felt at the time. Those are all part of the imprint that's left on that kind of injury. And in hindsight, so many more things make sense. But what I found many times was, and I recognize it now, where you see an irrational response by someone or by myself to a regular everyday event, almost always that's probably due to some kind of trauma. That's been my experience with it. And things like anxiety when your kids are screaming while they're playing, or you get angry over that, little kids playing, or in a lot of cases, I was just in a room and not present for a very long time, just because I was just constantly preoccupied in my head. Um, there's a number of things that come with it. So what I can say about EMDR treatment is that it took a picture that I've always compared it to going to the IMAX theater, a picture that big that was just huge, and it shrunk it down.
Hmm.
And I'm old enough, like you, that we grew up with Rolodexes in the library. Me, it's a mental Rolodex. What it did, it took that card and it put it back in time where it was supposed to be. So there's not a way that you erase a memory or you get rid of that. It just doesn't work that way. That's not how life is. But what it does do is take the intensity of it away and put it back in the past. I can still draw that up. Obviously, that's still an emotional incident for me. It's a difficult one, but I can tell you that before I started this process, now it's got 7.5 years ago, I couldn't even had a conversation about it, and it took me an hour just to get that story out at the time. So it makes a really big improvement. Um, so yeah, so I was since then I've done EMDR treatment for several things work related, and then since then on my journey, I just made a commitment to better mental health for myself. So I've done EMDR work now for other older issues, non-job related things that have been very beneficial for me. So the treatments are out there for issues and certainly can help you improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so you saw Kay. How many sessions did you do with her?
So, okay, um, you don't just walk in and they do EMDR.
Right.
They're going to spend a number of sessions with you, assessing you and having you talk about things. Because what they're looking for is, okay, what are all the issues that I'm dealing with here? In my case, at the time, that was the primary issue. But I think I had 4, maybe 5 sessions before we started EMDR.
Hmm.
There were ways that you were able to use the EAP differently to get additional sessions, and I did do additional sessions with Kay. And each session of EMDR was just the one session. It was literally one sitting related to the incident, one sitting related to the CISD,
Hmm.
and vast improvement. And it was gradual. It was just after a couple of days, I thought, it's just not on my mind the way it was, and I'm not seeing it the same way. It does. There was just like a weight off. It felt further away. So that's what that process does. It's
Yeah.
very passive, very
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. And are you still seeing someone now, or?
I do. A different clinician. Kay does. Her specialty was always in job-related trauma and PTSI. I was After I was done with her. I spent some time with her. I took a break, and a few years back, just decided I had more work to do with myself, and went back to a different clinician. She's outside of our network, and I was referred to her by an employee in the district, and she's been amazing for me. I pay out of pocket. I decided at the time that all the money I wasted on other things, it was worth it to spend a couple $1,000s a year on myself. So yeah, I still do occasionally. Every few months I might have a check-in, but I've done a number of EMDR sessions there that have been very beneficial and making changes.
Okay. How did some of this stuff? So obviously you had a very impactful start here. Having that right out the gate is on top of probation and everything else, and being at 110 and then 109. How did that all affect your home life?
Um, it wasn't good. like I said, I think a lot of the time I wasn't present in my own mind the way I should have been. I was that was kind of one of my final decisions to really start doing more work on myself, was for my kids' sake,
Mm.
to be more present. I've struggled a lot with a lot of anger. Like I said, that this trauma is strange because it'll emotions from an event will attach to other things. And like I said, that there can be some random things that bring up strange emotion that you're not sure why. Um, yeah, weird outbursts. You know, I said, and angry, really angry at dumb things, and or the, like I said, anxiety comes up with things that don't make sense. A lot of at times just feelings of grief and sadness. I had a lot of inner turmoil at the time, you know, and a lot of that I didn't bring out to the surface because, like I said, we learned it a different way. I didn't learn it any other way than you just deal with it,
Yeah.
internalize it. Um, like I said, I'd always thought at some point you can't keep stuffing things into a bottle or into a bucket, and it's true. Eventually, it's going to overflow. It just doesn't work that way. You need
Yeah.
to be able to unload things.
Do you recognize? I don't even know how to ask this question. Do you notice now, like things that used to get you angry that weren't big issues, when they come up now? Do you recognize them?
Yeah, not even. You know, it's such a change that I don't even have that reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that I used to, like dumb things.
Yeah.
You know, it really makes a lot of change over time. Like I said, for me, it's been a long process. I call it a journey because it's been a journey, and it's probably going to be a journey for the rest of my life. You know, but
Yeah.
it's we look at most folks here work out. They lift weights, they run, they cycle, they do CrossFit, they do interval training, whatever it might be. That's only one component of well-being or
Mm-hmm.
wellness.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that mental health, in my opinion, is the most important part to wellness. I think nothing else works if you do it. So I've committed to that, and that was really how he asked earlier how I got into peer support. That was it. I started this process, and after going through treatments over summer, Jeff Wells called me and asked if I would be interested in this. I said, yeah. Um, Came to the initial trainings that September, and then it wasn't long after if he asked me if I wanted to be the shift liaison. So I said, yeah, I'll do that too. So it's been a journey for me. What I know is that we weren't good about it before, and a lot of people, and not just me, and I even talk to retirees sometimes right now that, man, people I looked up to that are struggling, and we weren't good about handling things. So it's I want to make sure moving forward that folks know that there's a better option
Mm-hmm.
these days. We're doing different things.
Yeah.
So that's plenty of people have me reach out over the years here, and I never mind doing it, and I don't care what hour of the day or night it is.
It's funny you say that. I was going to bring this up, and I wasn't. Now I am. Do you know how many people have come to me and said, "Why is Pulis on peer support?" I'd never go talk to him about anything. And I didn't know you before you. I mean, I knew who you were, but we didn't really know
just
each
in
other.
passing. Yeah.
And I just like, no, I don't know. He's volunteered. He's a good dude. He's helping out. We'll go, why? He goes, oh, he's just, you had that 109 thing of angry, irritable, loud, and it seems to me like maybe that was part of just you or not even processing, just stuck in that spot. Does that seem fair?
I think that's pretty fair. I think over the last, like I said, I've started this road almost 8 years ago, so, over 7.5 years ago now. And yeah, it's been a lot of change. A lot of with inside myself, just a lot of relief, a lot less stress. It's so, yeah, I'd say that played into it at the time too. 109's a hard house. Anyone that's worked there knows it. And it's I ate it up. It was a lot of fun. But and if you're hard on folks, half the time I don't think folks realize we were joking.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably not. It was a hard crowd, but
yeah,
I think the folks that, God, I don't even know the numbers anymore of how many folks have either reached out to me or I've reached out to. But I can always say I don't think I've ever had a time where it hasn't been well received. It can be pretty awkward sometimes when someone calls me because they're concerned about someone else, and I'm calling that person when they're not expecting it.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a time yet where that wasn't well received. So
yeah.
I would hope that folks see what we're doing, you and all of us on the team, and recognize that if we're calling, it's because we actually care,
right?
And don't want folks to have to go through some of the same things that some of us have been through.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anyone back in those days, either at 110 or 109, that you could reach out to and have some difficult conversations with?
So that was the problem too. I tell people these days, I'm like, you have to have, if this job's gonna be survivable for a career, you have to have a safe place.
Yeah.
And I never had that. I didn't have a place. So much of what I struggled with, um, it was internal. And we did a lot of joking, like anybody. We said a lot of morbid things over the years and whatever else. But I didn't have a place to put that out. So I encourage anyone now. I mean, whether it's your spouse or significant other, or family member, a friend, coworker, clergy person, whatever it is, you gotta at least have somebody out there that you can share yourself with without judgment, and it's a safe place.
Yeah.
It's necessary. You need to be able to talk about the things that happen here. It's not good to internalize it. I can tell you that.
Oh,
Yeah. And drinking or whatever else isn't going to do anything at all
yeah.
to help you. It's only going to make things worse.
Oh, yeah. How old are your kids?
13 and almost 10.
Okay, so have they noticed the change?
Oh, sure. Anybody around me has noticed a massive change.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's good.
Just, I said, for me, being present, it was my biggest thing in my own head. And honestly, and I've always cared very much for my children, but as I've learned to better care for myself, it's made me even better caregiver to them. So it's really benefited, I think, people around me.
Okay, good. That's awesome. Anything you want to add that I haven't hit on yet?
Yeah, a couple more things. People, I think that we've been doing this, maybe mental health's been a big thing for maybe a decade now, especially the last 5 years out there, out across the boards, but especially in our field, and resiliency is always this topic that comes up. And I've been joking for a while now. Whoever figures out one day how to teach resiliency is going to make a lot of money. It's like, I don't know how much there is to teach there, but I've got a couple things that I came up with just on my own that I think are helpful in navigating this career. And they were just self-awareness, self-assessment, and self-care. Very simple. I think it's real important. Yeah, we're all tough. I can tell you that a tough shield only lasts so long, and eventually it doesn't work. And I think it's important to be honest with yourself. It's okay to ask yourself, how am I feeling? And it's okay if that answer is not good. And if that is the answer, maybe dig into it a little more. I think it's important to self-assess. How am I feeling? Where am I at these days? Whether it's at work or just in life. And the most important part of that is self-care. We're real good about caring for everybody around us in this job. I don't know that we necessarily always take the best care of ourselves. I've always been one to put Ryan last when it comes to taking care of things. And it's not selfish to put yourself a little bit higher on that list. In fact, it's important. If you want to stay healthy, that's what's going to be best for those around you.
Yeah. And you're not married, correct?
Not married, no.
But I forget your girlfriend's name.
Amy.
Amy. Is she, has she seen you grow through all this? Have you guys been together that long, or?
Since, early on into this, all this is when we first started dating. And she's seen a massive change. She saw a big change even since then when I got out of 109. It's sometimes you need to make changes in your life, but I can tell you, and that's another thing I've always told people too, when your family's pointing out problems to you, we think we're just awesome and know everything about ourselves. I can tell you, when your family and people around you are saying, hey, we're noticing this, I don't care what you think, they're right. Your family sees changes in you that you don't. And they see the good or the bad. If things are going wrong, they'll point that out. And if you've got a big change in your life, they're going to notice that too. So it's important. Listen to the people around you. If they don't think you're doing good, you're probably not doing too good.
Yeah.
That's just honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where do you see Pure Sport going? I don't know how much longer you have. I've got about 5 years left.
I've got a ways. I was a late start. So I think it's awesome what we've done in 7.5 years here, or 8 years, wherever Joe, I guess about 8 years now that Jeff really kind of got things rolling. It's pretty incredible. I feel like we're still in the infancy of what it's going to be. We're in a line of work that didn't accept this for a very long time. That's very recent, and it's been interesting. We didn't this last fall. Our station visits didn't work out the way we wanted with the scheduling this fall. But the last time I did station visits, I'm noticing the older guys are around the table and girls, the more their heads are nodding yes. So it's been really cool to see, especially people that have been around, starting to embrace this change.
Mm-hmm.
The youngest folks have it easiest. We're building something that's there when they walk in. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's something that's already there, and it's only going to continue to improve. So I think one more generation in, maybe, I think peer support's really going to become part of our culture. I know across the fire service, it's still hit and miss. I think we're very fortunate in the Sacramento region to have what we have here. Other regions have something similar or some really good stuff out there, but many don't. But I think at least here, we're pioneering in a good direction, and it's all been learning as we go. As you know, it's that we're constantly adding resources and learning more, and I think just building an environment where it's more acceptable to ask for help.
Yeah. Last question I can think of. Earlier, when you're talking about the call you went on, you say you went to a church and lit some candles. Are you spiritual? Do you go to church? Do you find comfort in that, or was that just something at the moment?
I grew up Catholic, and I'm not a regular churchgoer these days, but I grew up going to church every Sunday. And for me, I just didn't know where else to go, man. That was I didn't have a different place.
No.
That's God's house in my mind, and that's why I headed there. And I felt that was probably the thing to do that morning. But I didn't know where else to go. I didn't have. I had no idea what to do with that. But what I did know is that it was a lot, and I didn't know how to process that or handle that.
Yeah. Well, I applaud all the work you've done. Every time somebody's said to me, "What's Pulis doing?" I go, "He's been great for us. He gets all the hard cases. He's flying guys to, down south, or he's handling hard cases." And I love having you on peer support. I think it's been fantastic. And the fact that you're kind of a 109 guy that's now out and about a little bit, I think says volumes in the fact that you're willing to talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because 109,
it's an island.
It is, and it's a hard spot. It is a hard spot. I don't care who you are, and it's fine. Had some veteran guys there, and you were there for a while. So the fact that you're able to speak out about this, I think is fantastic, and I appreciate it.
Early on, it was hard to talk about because it's not something that's been well accepted at all, certainly amongst the older generation of folks just around here. It just isn't how it was.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. I don't mind it. I said somebody has to, and I hope nobody faults me out there for what I have to say, but I'm hoping that there's something positive that can be taken from this, especially for anyone that might be struggling. It's okay if you are.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do is reach out for help after that. And one thing I've always, especially since, made a point of too is with our youngest employees and probies, you need to reach out and talk to them after stuff goes on, because they're probably not going to talk. They don't know what to do with that. I didn't.
Yeah.
But sometimes they might be the ones affected the most, and they go under the radar, and like I did.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a good place to be. And it's set up for many years of just a lot of bad things.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your candor. I love having you on the team. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a good experience.
Yeah. So anything else you want to add?
No, I think, like I said, I think folks just do your best to care for each other and yourselves. A lot of folks have been helped by this program. I don't even know. One thing I think that I've always said is that the fact that you haven't heard much about what we're doing, this should be a testament to the confidentiality that we bring to the table when we show up. But people are using this a lot, and it's been really good for a lot of folks. So got a lot of resources out there, and this isn't just work related. It's a personal life. Different life stages happen all along. Life still happens while we do this job for a career, and your struggles might be outside of here. There's plenty of help for that too. We've provided it. So
I agree.
Don't be afraid to reach out. I'm saying it's the lamest thing, but it's the truth. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you aren't.